choice shit here. When I was a little boy, my mother, my sweet mother, Peggy Ann, and my grandmother, Mary Lucille. My grandmother, who used to give me baths. Isn't that sweet? And then at the end of the bath, for modesty's sake, my grandmother would hand me, y'all call it a washcloth, we call it wash rag. My grandmother would hand me a wash rag and she'd say, now honey, I'm gonna step outside. You stand up and wash your possibilities. Isn't that sweet? That's a good way to put it, wash your possibilities. But my mother and my grandmother took one look at little Leslie and they thought, oh, he's gonna need some help. They circled the wagons as only good Southern women can do. And they created this amazing secret garden where it was okay for little boys to play with dolls. It was okay for little boys to read Trixie Belden and Nancy Drew instead of those rambunctious Hardy Boys. It was okay for little boys to sew doll clothes and make pot holders. I was very artistic. It was okay for this little boy to do whatever he wanted except, shh, oh no honey, let's not show daddy. Y'all, my daddy was a lieutenant colonel in the Army. I was not exactly the son he envisioned. My daddy used to call me son as if he was in deep pain. He would just say, oh son. My first ambition when I was a kid, long before there was MTV, there was this television show called Hullabaloo. And it featured go-go dancers on white cubes, and I was transfixed. So they would ask me when I was little, what do you want to be when you grow up? You want to be a fireman? You want to be president of the United States? I want to be a go-go dancer. And I knew that to achieve that level of expertise, it was going to take a lot of practice. So I would commandeer the coffee table in the living room and I'd push all the furniture back. Well, my poor daddy would come home with all of his Army buddies. And I would be up on the coffee table. Daddy, what's to do the pony? Daddy would just say, oh, son. Now, my mama was a champion baton twirler. Aren't they all in Tennessee? I remember one summer afternoon, she got out her baton. We were out in the front yard, and she taught me a routine. Y'all, I was really good. I could throw it under my legs. I could spin. I could do that pose at the end. My daddy comes driving up with all of his Army buddies, and I hollered from the front yard, Daddy, watch me twirl! I can see the look on his face, and he just said, oh, son. Son, won't you twirl in the house? I said, Mama's scared I'll break some. Son, I will pay for whatever. Now listen, my daddy was killed in a plane crash when I was 11 years old. And I just knew, you know, to the very core of my being, that he went to his grave somewhat ashamed to have a son like me. And you know, at 11, I didn't even really know what like me meant. On my 53rd birthday, which was, well, plus tax and deposit, but anyway. On my 53rd birthday, which was April the 29th, I flew my sweet mama out and we were having dinner, and she started telling me this amazing story. I just sat there open mouthed. I wanted to think, all those years of therapy, I wanted to throttle her. This one story would have taken care of all of it. When I was 3 years old, my mom and my daddy took me to a wedding, and I was a wiggle worm, so they were afraid I wouldn't sit in the pew, and I wouldn't. I was all over that pew. Just sit, Mama, sit. So all of a sudden, the bride came down the aisle, and Mother said I froze like a pointer dog. She said, I watched that bride leave the church. When we got home, she heard me in the next room with my cousin Karen, and we were playing Bright and Goon. Now, I had an angel food cake pan on my head, and I was the bride. Now, my family had this thing we do every Christmas. We'd go down to Loveland's department store. So I'm with my daddy and all of his army buddies, and I would sit on Santa Claus' lap, and then Santa Claus would ask you what you want for Christmas. Well, in front of everybody, I said a bride doll. Well, my daddy went home and said to my mom over my dead body, I'm gonna get that boy a bride doll. Well, Christmas Eve rolled around, it was all I could talk about. I said, Mom, I'm gonna get a bride doll. Santa Claus gonna bring me a bride doll. So finally my mother went with my daddy, she said, Alan, you're gonna explain it to him because I don't know what to say. My lieutenant colonel of a daddy, this is 1958, scoured Chattanooga, Tennessee, and found his son the most beautiful bride doll, his 3-year-old son. Listen, I came down the steps, and when I saw it under the tree, I squatted in the floor and I peed.